My wife said she'd go through my phone, then I flipped the script and her secrets came out. Began on a quiet Sunday evening, the kind where small tensions simmer beneath the surface until a spark ignites them into an unexpected blaze. I had been scrolling through emails and messages, finishing up a work project, when she appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, a look of calculated suspicion that made my stomach tighten. "I think it's time I go through your phone," she said, her tone sharp, controlled, as if the words themselves were a weapon. "I need to know what you've been hiding." I froze for a moment, the weight of her accusation hanging heavy in the air. It wasn't the first time she had made such a claim, but the certainty in her voice this time was different, more aggressive, more threatening. It was meant to intimidate, to assert dominance, to unearth imagined secrets she suspected but had no proof of. I nodded calmly, keeping my voice level. "Sure," I said, masking the storm of anticipation brewing inside me. Little did she know, the tables were about to turn in ways she would never anticipate. For weeks, I had noticed subtle signs, her late-night messages, the faint perfume lingering on scarves that were not mine, hushed phone calls abruptly ended when I entered the room. I had watched, recorded, collected screenshots, photos, timestamps, each small piece of evidence building a quiet dossier of deception. I had no intention of confronting her recklessly, not yet. I wanted the perfect moment, one where the full weight of her actions could be revealed without doubt, without ambiguity, and with maximum impact. As she sat beside me, phone in hand, ready to dig through my messages and emails, I feigned nervousness, pretending to shuffle files, open innocuous apps, act as though I was hiding something trivial. Her eyes darted constantly, scanning my expressions, searching for tension, for guilt, for a slip that would validate her suspicions. I let her lean in, swipe, scroll, and mutter under her breath, her fingers dancing across the screen as she looked for signs of betrayal. I could see her confidence, the subtle smirk that often preceded accusations, building as she prepared for what she thought would be a triumphant revelation. But then, carefully, almost imperceptibly, I shifted the device I had hidden on the table, tapping into a secure folder she had no knowledge I had access to, a folder I had set up months ago on the shared cloud account, synced across devices, storing copies of every suspicious message, email, and photograph she had thought were private. Within seconds, I had access to everything she had tried to conceal. Texts to men she insisted were just friends, emails detailing plans she had omitted from me, photos with timestamps proving she had lied about locations and meetings. Every secret she had believed hidden was now at my fingertips, waiting to be revealed. I took a deep breath, keeping my expression calm, almost passive, letting her continue her search while I prepared the ultimate counter. Then, with a subtle gesture, I opened the folder on the larger screen we had in the living room, projecting the contents in plain sight. Her eyes widened instantly, a flicker of panic flashing across her face as she realized she was no longer in control. The smirk vanished, replaced by a rising tide of shock, disbelief, and the raw fear of exposure. She tried to snatch the phone back, to interrupt, to deny, but the evidence was undeniable. Every message, every photograph, every time-stamped detail chronicled her duplicity in vivid, irrefutable detail. Friends who were visiting that evening, initially oblivious to the tension, froze as the revelation unfolded. Whispers filled the room, gasps punctuated the quiet, and she sank into a chair, hands clutching at her hair, her carefully constructed facade collapsing under the weight of the truth. I didn't shout, I didn't argue, I merely let the files speak, the proof illuminating every corner of the room, leaving no room for denial, no opportunity for misdirection. The moment she had intended as a hunt, a revelation of my supposed secrets, had backfired spectacularly, turning into a mirror reflecting her own betrayals back at her. Her attempts to explain, to justify, to twist the narrative, were weak and fragmented. Each excuse collided with the evidence displayed for all to see. She had assumed control, assumed superiority, assumed that she could dig through my life unimpeded. But in her confidence, she had revealed everything about herself, every lie and every deception meticulously documented, now undeniable in its clarity. The irony was palpable, a quiet satisfaction washing over me as I watched her falter, realizing that the power dynamic had shifted entirely in an instant. By the end of the night, the aftermath was clear. She had learned the hard way that suspicion cuts both ways, that attempts to dominate or intimidate can reveal more about the accuser than the accused. I had allowed her to search my phone, pretending vulnerability and hiding nothing trivial, while secretly holding the keys to a far more devastating truth. Her secrets, once thought safe behind the walls of lies and omissions, had been brought into the light, undeniable, unavoidable, and irreversible. I left the room quietly, letting the evidence linger in her mind, knowing that this revelation would echo far longer than any argument or confrontation could. She had aimed to assert control, to unearth imagined wrongs in my life, but instead had been confronted by her own actions, her own duplicity, and the consequences she had never anticipated. In flipping the script, I had not just defended myself, I had exposed the truth, turning her accusation into her undoing, and in that exposure, I found a sense of clarity, calm, and quiet triumph. That night, as the house settled into silence, I reflected on the irony and the precision of the plan. She had thought she held all the power, but in reality, she had handed it to me unknowingly. By insisting on searching my life, she had inadvertently revealed her own, and I had only waited patiently, observed carefully, and executed the moment perfectly. The phrase "flip the script" had never felt so literal, so satisfying, so final. Her secrets had come out, and with them, the truth of our marriage, truths she could no longer hide, no longer manipulate, and no longer deny.